as all four head coaches took to the podium on Friday afternoon in San Antonio, and they all seemed pretty jazzed up for this weekend's games. USA Today Sports San Antonio, the decision by McDonald's All-American Darius Bazley to forgo his college eligibility at Syracuse and instead play a year in the NBA's D League before entering the draft was met with a chorus of approval Thursday across college sports. It is, in fact, exactly what the likes of Pac-12 Commissioner Larry Scott and Big Ten Commissioner Jim Delaney have long advocated for prospects who enter college basketball only as a short-term means to an end. There needs to be the ability for a young person and his family to say, what I really want to do is just become a professional ball player, NCAA President Mark Emmert said. And they ought to be provided that opportunity if they don't want to go to college. In the most literal sense, Emmert is correct. The freedom to choose your professional path and with the consequences, whether that includes college or not, is a luxury Americans of every vocation should have. But like much of what the NCAA does, its misguided virtue has turned to insufferable sanctimony when it comes to the one-and-done culture they're now fighting to root out. Tired of being viewed as a minor league by players whose primary goal is the NBA, the NCAA has essentially sent the message, "We don't want you," and it was only a matter of time before someone like Bazley took them up on that offer. More, Loyola's run highlights flaws in current, amateur model more. Loyola Chicago's Final Four run wake-up call for selection committee more. College athletics has changed, and it's long past time NCAA recognized it now. A few caveats: there's no way to know how Bazley will fare in the D League against grown men on the cusp of the NBA or how it will affect his draft stock. It's impossible to project how many others will follow. And regardless of how this experiment goes, Syracuse will field a basketball team next season and the NCAA tournament will go on as planned. But, the NCAA's backlash to one-and-done aspirants isn't a strategy free of consequences. While the NCAA views the issue largely in the context of cleaning up the sport, i.e., if players want to get paid, go to a league where they'll pay you, the war on one-and-done culture is both morally and logically misguided. For one thing, a sports organization getting paid $770 million a year to put a basketball tournament on television telling the most talented people available to participate in that tournament that they are and when it isn't, just counterintuitive, it's bad business. Moreover, if the NCAA is going to claim that the educational mission is at the core of its amateur model, doesn't it have a moral obligation to offer that opportunity even to people who may not realize its benefit when they're 18 years old? There's a lot of kids out there that go to college, and the only reason they go is because their parents force them to, Kansas coach Bill Self said. So many things happen from a mind standpoint and from an awareness, from a motivational, from a goals standpoint, after you get out of high school. Kids mature, kids change. We've recruited, projected, one-and-done guys that have stayed for 4 years. We've recruited 4-year guys that have become one-and-dones. I don't understand why we can just play it out and let the individuals do what is best for themselves and their families as opposed to everybody else trying to dictate what's best. Kansas Jayhawks head coach Bill Self at the Final Four. Photo, Robert Deutsch, USA Today Sports. Self isn't being self-serving here. Regardless of what the rules become or how many top prospects the D League eventually skims off the top, Self will recruit from the elite pool of available players and have Kansas in position to reach the Final Four nearly every year. But he only has to look at his own roster this season to understand the folly of inflexibility the NCAA seems so eager to engage in. Coming out of high school, Kansas guard Malik Newman was a consensus top 10 recruit who signed with Mississippi State under the assumption that he would play 1 year of college basketball before sliding into the NBA lottery. Instead, Newman's freshman year was a train wreck. He struggled in Ben Allen's system. He didn't understand how to play defense. He shot the ball poorly, 39%, and lost his confidence under the weight of tremendous expectations. In other words, he was a fairly typical freshman. Newman, who sat out last season after transferring, scored 32 points Sunday in the Elite Eight win against Duke. It's still unclear whether he's a legitimate NBA prospect or merely a very good player who was overvalued as a teenager. But going to college gave him that opportunity to be overwhelmed, to be humbled and to grow into whatever he was going to eventually be. Why in the world With college basketball, tell a kid like that, "You're not wanted here," and force them into the abyss of the minor leagues with even less hope of resurfacing? There will be a percentage of kids who make that decision, whether it be academic, whatever, that will never, ever experience being an NBA basketball player, Self said. And then what do they have when that's gone? College has done so much for so many. And you don't have to look at 4-year guys to believe that college is good. The NCAA is headed down a path where young people are going to make some very real, very bad choices so that college presidents can preserve their very fake, very nauseating academic integrity. NCAA President Mark Emmert at the Final Four. Photo, Robert Deutsch, USA Today Sports. And if that happens, there will be room in between for disruptors to make up the gap. LaVar Ball has talked about starting a minor league. Another group, led by antitrust economist Andy Schwartz, who consulted on the Ed O'Bannon lawsuit against the NCAA, has been recruiting angel investors to start the historical basketball league, HBL. The idea behind the HBL is that it would offer top prospects $50,000 to $100,000 salary, plus the opportunity to pursue their own marketing deals, and a college scholarship. The teams would play in the summer months and be aligned with historically black colleges and universities, which have been increasingly marginalized in the NCAA model. The venture is expensive. They're trying to raise $60 million to fund at least the first 2 years, Schwartz said, and certainly unorthodox. There's lots of work to be done, from actually getting schools to hop on board to finding a media rights deal, likely with paying service. But Schwartz's group has already brought a dozen investors on board and has piqued the interest of influential people in the Silicon Valley and entertainment sectors. There have been indirect conversations, Schwartz said, with NBA players who are interested in entrepreneurial opportunities. "There's a weird spot where I actually agree with Mark Emmert that choice is good," Schwartz said. "I just think the choice he sees as a real choice is sort of a false choice, which is that if you want to go to college you have to give up your economic rights. We see where we could be in this sort of emerging new world as the right choice for somebody who's academically inclined, but maybe they only want to go to college for 1 year now, and when they're done with their basketball career they can be guaranteed that they can return. Or maybe they don't know whether the HBL, or something like it, turns into a viable alternative to the NCAA remains to be seen. It's hard to start a new sports league. But Darius Bazley's decision not to attend Syracuse opens the door to all kinds of possibilities and conversations. And if that's something the NCAA leadership is going to cheerlead, it deserves whatever consequence.